Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another weather forecast by Adrian's Weather Forecast, and I hope you guys are all enjoying your wonderful Monday day. In this video, we're going to be doing another update on the two upcoming very large Great Lakes snowstorms and cross-country low-pressure systems along ahead of this negative tilted trough currently in the northwest. We're watching out for a basically more like a positive PNA type pattern where we are seeing this Alaskan ridge pretty making its way pretty eastward, allowing for some extreme ridging across the west, and it's going to change the whole pattern from this week to next week. We're going to go from basically really a hot pattern across the east and central right now in this week to a very cold, snowy, and just overall wintry type pattern at the end of this week into the beginning of next week. So we are watching out for two upcoming snowstorms, one likely to become named Atticus, making it our first named storm of the season, and we are watching out for feet of snow, heavy snow, tons of rain, and just a huge upcoming pattern. But without further ado, let's get in the video. So let's now get a quick look now at the National Weather Service as we are looking at the overall current troughing we're seeing across the first system itself across the northwest. But we're going to be transitioning to our second system. But as of now, we do have winter weather advisories in those purple counties, including and areas in the far upper Sierras across northern and as well eastern Washington as well, making its way towards the crest of the Rockies, going towards areas in far western Montana as well, and towards Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming, and of course seeing down the crest of the sea areas as we get towards Yosemite and South Lake Tahoe. That is what we have a few winter weather advisories. In those highest elevations, we have a few winter warnings, including just California and Washington, where we do have those warnings as well, including Olympia National Park and as well far north central California. As well, we do have high wind warnings across Oregon with a lot of, as well, wind advisories all the way up the northern coast of California, including San Francisco. And as well, we do have a few advisories, including Washington and Oregon. And we have high wind watches across Cheyenne. But we do have a pretty nice negative to the trough right now, really having a sharp nose, really ejecting toward the northwest, allowing for that really cooler air. But not only cooler air, but really strong winds coming off the west. So we're going to watch out for some onshore breeze across the western United States, and we're looking at possibly 30 to 40, even 50 mile-an-hour wind gusts. So it's going to be very messy conditions across the areas under the winter weather alert. So stay safe if you are under those alerts. So let's now get a quick look now at the overall NAM 3 kilometer composite reflectivity and precipitation type. So here you can kind of tell basically where this overall trough is. So we're going to be seeing obviously the main trough going to be basically like this. So you see kind of that negative tilted with the isobars, and then you can kind of see the wind profiles going like that. And it's basically what it's going to look like. And then you have that really front kind of making its way towards the west. It's exactly where we have the huge blob of rain. And unlike the first trough that we saw kind of develop earlier last weekend where it was ejecting into British Columbia, this is going to be a lot further south. We're allowing for a lot more of that precipitation to be centered specifically along the U.S. West Coast. It's exactly what we're going to be seeing here. But a lot of rain across portions of California as well as higher elevation. Like I said, going to be start seeing some transitioning as this cold air really catches up quickly along this trough. We're going to be seeing some deep freeze across the western United States. You're going to be seeing some nice cooler and wet weather, at least for the beginning of this week here. A lot of snow staying pretty isolated across Oregon and California, with watching out for some flooding concerns all the way from San Francisco, Redding, Sacramento, all the way up the west corridor, looking at as well, including Salem, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, as well. A lot of Olympia National Park, it was the lower elevation, and of course, including Seattle. And of course, as we get later into tomorrow, a lot of that front's going to start to make its way further eastward, so a lot of that precipitation is going to get forced eastward. At this point, the cold is going to be far catched up over here. Is kind of where the front's going to be, and it's going to allow for all that remaining precipitation will be most likely snow, especially across the Yellowstone area as well near Helena and Great Falls, Montana. And then, of course, at that point, by the 10th, this front will be moving towards the Midwest, and that's where that first snowstorm will be originating. Let's now get a quick look now at the actual wind gusts here really quickly here. So let's look at the 10-meter wind speeds in miles an hour. Of course, we're not going to be looking at kilometers or anything like that. So let's get towards really basically today. Obviously, those strong winds are really kind of still along that front where all that rain is. So it's going to be pretty calm tonight. But as we wake up tomorrow, it's going to be a lot less calm. Going to be seeing some really strong winds, specifically near the San Francisco area as well off the coast of Oregon, looking at 54 to possibly even 56 miles an hour. This is not gust. We're going to be seeing some regular winds sustained up to nearly 35 to 40 across those scattered elevations. It's going to be really windy towards Yosemite, so not going to be a nice day to visit those national parks. And of course, gust wise, these gusts should be completely different. We're going to be seeing gusts up to possibly nearly 60 across Oregon. Even gusts up to 80 just off the coast. It's going to be very windy and a very messy system there. Let's look at the overall snow accumulation. So, we're going to be seeing a lot more snow compared to the first trough last weekend. It's going to be a lot centered as well further southward. So, even getting some action across the four corner states, including Utah and Colorado. But a lot of snow that's going to actually come from the system itself. Additionally, it will be California, while kind of Washington, most of it's going to be coming eventually later on by Wednesday. But we're going to kind of cut off towards Tuesday. A lot of stuff going to be towards, like I said, Yosemite portion there, Lake Tahoe. Going to be seeing some good snow across Oregon and Idaho, as well as some good snow across the Sierra Path. And then, of course, a little bit left to go in those winter weather advisories across Yellowstone National Park. So let's now look at the overall troughing pattern and the overall 500 millibar kind of ridging and trough and kind of the overall climate we're experiencing here across the United States and the wind patterns. So obviously, we are seeing a very stubborn high pressure across much of the South United States. A lot of us are feeling it. My high today got up to 74 degrees, which is actually pretty well above average. So I went from the 40s as the highs last week to now in the 70s. It's going to remain this as we continue throughout the week. But here's this trough currently we're experiencing in the western United States. There you kind of see the dip right there. You can kind of tell by the overall wind, by the wind direction itself, kind of seeing those southwesterlies. You can kind of see by the wind profile, really strong gusts. We're seeing up to 4 lines facing the vertical axis, so really strong wind, or actually, sorry, the horizontal axis. But as we continue, we're going to continue to see this ridge obviously display across the southeast United States. But at this point, as we go later on in the week, this ridge will slowly push its way further eastward, and then we'll start to see a ridging pattern start to develop as that kind of Alaskan high pressure moves so far east. And that's the exact reason why we're talking about the pattern we're currently talking about, because we're going to be looking at a positive PNA. So we're going to start seeing that Alaskan ridge push really far east, but that's going to allow for this trough we're seeing here to really push into the United States. And we're seeing some really strong ejection between this ridge, or between this trough, excuse me. And there we see that really intense ridge of the buildup across the United States. You can kind of be seeing kind of a blocking low, a large low, high, and a high. And there you see that really extreme dip of the jet stream. And it's going to allow for a lot of that cold air to kind of remain kind of towards this part of it. That's where all this cold air is going to be right here. Warm air and drier conditions, warm air and drier conditions. But as we get towards Friday, that's when we're going to start seeing a cool down across the southeast by Friday. This ridge will far past into the southeast, or sorry, then towards the northeast Atlantic. And we're going to start seeing some cooler air all across the eastern United States. And you can tell we're looking at basically an open wave trough somewhat. You can kind of tell by the overall ISO line that's kind of more towards open wave. But you can also see it's very strong ejection here based on the wind profiles. And of course, we're looking at a really strong kind of counterclockwise flow with this low pressure, which is typical November pattern. So we're going to be seeing a chance for some multiple hours of snow across the same area, as well, watching out for some Great Lake effect snow. But this is the first snowstorm here, like the less intense one. But as we get towards really the 14th, we're going to be seeing this ridge, or sorry, not this ridge, this trough. You can kind of tell by the you can kind of just tell there's a really wobbly trough here. It's a really wobbly, steep low. It's not going to really wobble around. But we're going to be seeing a second low pressure kind of taking advantage of this wobble of this trough. And it's going to kind of form and go basically riding the very edge of that trough. And at this point, the cold is going to be far, far towards the Outer Banks, far into Delmarva, far into the Mid-Atlantic. And that's actually going to allow for this second low pressure to actually be in the colder itself. At this point, this low pressure is going to be way, way behind that cold front convergence line. So it's going to be directly really colder for its whole path. So it's going to allow for some really good chance for some snow. And that's going to be basically a really good path for the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and portion of the Northeast. It's looking really good for those areas. But let's look at the overall 2 temperature meter anomaly so that guys can get an idea what I'm talking about. So here's the overall look at the 2 meter temperature anomaly, of course, seeing a really intense ridge across much of the United States, bringing well above average temperatures, especially by Friday across the I-95 corridor. But like I said, by Friday, we're going to start seeing some cooler air across the southeast. Of course, the storm's going to start really developing at the 12th, but look at the 12th. It's really not a good, super good pattern, especially if it's November. The averages alone are still a little bit warmer. So we're not going to be talking about a massive, like a windstorm Ezekiel November pattern. Because this cold front's still going to be lagging to the west here. I mean, this cold front's still going to kind of be towards right here, while it's probably the low pressure going to be over here. But as this low pressure obviously stalls backwards and kind of backs up, that's going to allow time for that cold front to catch up by later Friday. And that's going to be the reason why we're going to start seeing some more widespread snow late into the storm. But at this point, this front's going to be far towards the east. So by Saturday, it's going to be mostly over. Some scattered snow showers across the Great Lakes, possibly Chicago, Milwaukee, who knows. And at this point, by Saturday, we're going to be seeing a significant freeze. And there you see that ridge pattern start to really develop across the western United States. Also, to see that troughing pattern there develop across the eastern United States, talking about around 20 plus degrees below average. But watch by the 14th and the 15th. By the 14th, we see that second low pressure develop with the same trough. Look at that. It's already in a huge environment, a very, very favorable environment with already 15 to 20, possibly 25 degrees below average. As we get towards the 15th and 16th, look at that. We're going to see a huge pocket of over basically 27 to 30 degrees below average. So this is a very favorable environment. And look at that. Look at by the 16th, looking at 30 degrees below average. This is a very, very significant environment to see a large snowstorm to the belt because the cold front's far. I mean, it's already, look at this. This is way better than whatever this is. I mean, whatever this is obviously way better, a way better environment. I mean, look at that. Even follows it towards the northeast, seeing a pocket of 26 degrees below average near Pennsylvania. So it's kind of following the path of that low pressure. So this is going to be possibly a very significant storm. This most likely will become Atticus. The second low pressure will most likely be Atticus, while the first one does not get named because it's not going to be affecting enough people. And before we get into the actual models and the actual MSLP, look at the difference between this week here across the southeast and the eastern United States. Seeing a very intense high pressure, the southeast ridge, going to be seeing highs across the 70s and 60s across these areas, well above average. Lows not getting past the 50s in some parts when they were struggling to get at the 50s and the highs last week. But watch, here comes that first cold front. Starting to see those below average temperature or those below freezing temperatures. Look at Friday. I mean, we're seeing some okay temperatures, some upper 20s. But look at Wisconsin. I mean, look at Milwaukee. Look at Chicago. Still in the upper 30s and lower 40s. I mean, this is just this cold front's way too far to the west. I mean, look at this. Still, this is kind of the below freezing line. It's way too far east because at this point the low pressure is going to be right here, and all this is going to be rain. All that's going to be rain, and all this is going to be snow basically. So it's just this cold front's going to lag way too much. Still going to be seeing some cold air, but a lot of that deep freeze is going to be happening the few days after. I mean, look at this. By the 15th, this is going to be that second low pressure, a lot colder. We're talking possibly getting towards the negative digits. I mean, there's a very good chance we can get to the negative digits here. 2 degrees. 2 degrees. I mean, look at the minimum. 1 degree. This is a lot more significant, obviously, than the 30 degrees and 29 degrees. I mean, look at that. 8 degrees for Wisconsin. It's going to get extremely cold. I mean, look at this in the teens across the Ohio Valley, getting towards below freezing all the way down near Macon, Georgia, getting teens across Virginia, getting teens across North Carolina. Very incredible environment to see a very large snowstorm. This is just a prone environment to see something absolutely massive developing. This is a crazy environment. 100%. But let's now get a look at what the GFS has to say for this. So let's kind of go all the way towards, here's that first low pressure basically right there. This is the 11th. At this point, it's going to be a little bit too warm, so it's going to be really along that cold front. Going to be seeing a lot of rain, cold, chilly rain. Of course, in the northwest, that's where we have the colder air. That's where all the snow is going to be. So it's going to be specifically centered towards Ontario and portions there of central Canada or south central Canada. You can kind of see it's going to be really specifically for Ontario. But as it wrap around, I mean, this is kind of just downgrading as we continue. But look at that second low pressure, though. Let's now continue to scroll. There it is at low pressure right there. And see, it automatically just stays as snow. I mean, we're already seeing snow as soon as it enters the United States. And look at this already. And notice how the snow is actually, all of it is to the east of the cold front. Or east of the low pressure. And that's because that's where that extremely, extremely cold air is. It's extremely favorable for a large snowstorm, including the Twin Cities there, portions of Minnesota, all of Wisconsin, including even Chicago could get some really good snow. Madison, Milwaukee, portions of Green Bay, now entering portion there of Muskegon. Indianapolis may get some snow, but look at this monster right here. I mean, Cleveland, Columbus, Ohio, Detroit, Lansing, Ann Arbor, Fort Wayne, I mean Notre Dame, in towards obviously Cleveland, Youngstown, Ohio. Look at Sunday, extremely heavy snow now. Look at that low pressure, 999 millibars. That's extremely strong and steep low. And we were talking about extremely heavy snow across Pennsylvania, including Pittsburgh, Erie, looking at as well and towards far northern West Virginia, as well including Youngstown, Ohio, portions there of Lake Erie, even Toronto getting some action, Detroit getting some action, Buffalo getting some action, the New England's getting some action. I mean, this is a very, very intense snowstorm. Let's not get a look at the European before we actually look at the snowfall accumulation. So here's the first one by the European, really steep low, 992. Some scattered snow showers, very, very scattered, and it's going to be very light at this point. Iowa, maybe some snow showers there for Chicago, but here comes that second storm there. It actually cuts off a little bit, but the Europeans actually kind of agreeing with the GFS here. There's some good snow there for Grand Forks, Bismarck, Fargo, Devil's Lake, Twin Cities there, of course, Rochester, into Eau Claire, into Wisconsin Dells, and then really heavy snow now at this point overnight to the Sunday, including southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois, of course, Chicago there, Aurora's there, including now Green Bay, of course, Milwaukee, Madison, Wisconsin Dells, and towards Appleton, of course, and then at this point it's going to start making its way towards Indianapolis and towards portions there of Fort Wayne, as well as towards portions of, eventually at this point it's going to get towards Fort Wayne, Notre Dame, and that, yeah, that's basically where it's going to start making its way. Last but not least, get a look at the snowfall accumulations by the GFS. So here's that first storm, really light snow basically. I mean, it's going to be very scattered. A lot of that's going to be lake effect snow. Half this is going to be lake effect snow, so the main snow is actually pushing a lot further northward. Look at Ontario, getting absolutely just clobbered by that storm. So imagine if this storm was the slow pressure was a lot lower, but some good snow there for International Falls, Minnesota there around the border of Canada. Some good snow as well, of course, towards North Dakota. And, yeah, that's basically what the GFS is doing. But look at the second storm. Boom! Look at that. Holy cow. I mean, look how widespread that snow is. I mean, we're talking about 8 inches, basically, from St. Paul, Minneapolis, now including some really heavy snow across portions of Kalamazoo, Muskegon, Traverse City, as well as some good snow near Marquette, Green Bay getting some good snow. But notice how a lot of that good snow is actually going to kind of be towards the northeast of the low pressure. Really good snow as well towards the Lake Erie. Some extremely good snow across portions of Erie, Pennsylvania, Buffalo, Cleveland, Youngstown, Ohio. That's some really, really good snow. We're not going to look at the European for snowfall accumulations because it's not far enough in. Let's look at the Ohio Valley. Let's actually specifically look at the regions here. I mean, look at that. This is absolutely incredible. This is definitely a pretty big trend. Even some light trace for Indianapolis, maybe even for Cincinnati. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.